Alright, I am back with another video, and today we are here with my highly requested follow-up to my Kirito build that I posted on Monday. We are doing Asuna. Now, really, if we were to build, like, Asuna, I guess, the correct way, if we're going off my Kirito build, they would basically be the same build, obviously changing out the armor and the weapon. So I've decided to go for something a little bit different this time around, and I'm going to use some, like, I guess, lore justifications for what I'm about to do, but I am going to preempt this really quickly because I know people are going to say it. No, I'm not building a swordsbard. My past, like, 3 videos, everybody said, oh, but you could have just built a swordsbard. Like, it was on Predator, and I think it was on Kirito as well. Okay, yes, I get it, swordsbard is the best thing in the game, but right now it is my arch nemesis, as it has been since, like, this channel's inception. I don't just want to build swordsbards all the time. Please, just hear me out, okay? Rant over. So yes, today we're building Asuna. I'm making this kind of as a counterpart to the Kirito build, so I've got a few things in here that are going to help us kind of get the similar sort of weapon skill vibe, but in a different way, and also give Asuna some unique aspects that Kirito won't have, to be able to make her stand out, but also allow them to work better together as a team. So let's get into the build. First off, we are going to be starting with a Paladin. Now, this may seem a bit strange, because most people will be like, oh, you know, Asuna isn't like an actual, like, holy fighter, but in reality, if we're taking the idea of weapon skills into account, and we're wanting to do it a different way than the Battlemaster Fighter, then the Paladin, other than the Swordsbard, the Paladin would be the next best thing, as this would let us get, you know, the various different types of smites to give our weapons different types of damage and different kind of, like, effects, which is basically weapon skills, and it's done in a unique enough way that it is different from Kirito that I think it will work out. But instead of just building a straight Paladin, like I did Kirito a straight fighter, we are going to be multi-classing here, for reasons we'll get to when it becomes relevant. So, let's get into the subclass. It doesn't really matter, pick whatever you like. My understanding is that Asuna was a healer at some points, so Paladin in general will work, but if you wanted to lean into that aspect, Oath of the Ancients works well. Oath of Devotion, if you wanted to kind of lean more into the idea of she was a part of that, like, what was it called, Knights of the Red Cross, or Knights of the Blood, or something, I think that's what its name was. I probably should have looked that up again before I started this recording. Anyways, up to you, or you can play the Oath of Vengeance. It's entirely up to you. I'm personally going to go with Vengeance because it is my favourite, but even something like Oathbreaker would work. As for our stats, we're going to be building this a little bit strange. We're going to be going for a 16 in Dexterity, a 16 in Constitution, a 14 in Charisma, and a 12 in Strength. This is basically just going to be a nice balance of our main stats, that being Dexterity and Constitution, Charisma for our spellcasting, although it is not the main focus of the build, but we might as well grab it, and also Strength because we are going to need a little bit of it for one of our features that we're going to be getting later. And as for our stats, because I've actually this is actually a hireling, the human female fighter hireling that has been reskinned and renamed to be Asuna, so you can use hirelings for these builds, as long as they are the same body type and race, because you cannot change those. You also cannot change the voice, but in this case it's fine. And because she has the soldier background, that being athletics and intimidation proficiency, it works out pretty nicely. We're also going to get... Oh no, sorry, not a human, sorry, I've built a wood elf. I literally said human when wood elf is right there. Oh, it's been a day. Anyways, that also means we get stealth proficiency and a little bit of a bump to our movement speed, which is nice. And I've gone for insight and persuasion as our proficiencies because I feel like those work quite nicely, but pick whatever you like. Next up, we're going to be getting Paladin level 2, and this is where we're going to be getting some super important features for the build, namely Divine Smite, which is going to be our main weapon skill that adds radiant damage to our attacks, but also we're going to be able to choose a fighting style, and obviously we're going with dueling. We use a one-handed weapon, that being a rapier, so getting an additional extra 2 damage for free is pretty good, and no, we are not using a shield with this build. It wouldn't be right. Now, as for our spells, you can take whatever you like here, but as I said, if we're going down the weapon skills angle, I want to pick up the Divine Smite variants, that being Searing Smite, Thunderous Smite, and Wrathful Smite. And the final one can be whatever you'd like. Divine Favor, if you want that little bit of extra radiant damage for 3 turns, which could also work. Heroism, if you want to prevent yourself from being frightened and give yourself a bit of extra tankiness. Cure Wounds, if you do want to go into that slight healer aspect. Shield of Faith, if you want some more AC. It's entirely up to you. I'm personally going to be going with Divine Favor. Next up, we will be a Paladin level 3. meaning we're going to be getting some interesting things from our subclass. Namely, for the Oath of Vengeance, we'd get Abjure Enemy, allowing us to frighten an enemy, or Vow of Enmity, giving us advantage on attack rolls against an enemy for 10 turns, so you can kind of lock onto the boss of the dungeon and absolutely rip them to shreds. We're also going to be getting Hunter's Mark and Bane. Hunter's Mark is just obviously a really nice extra spell to be able to do a little bit of extra damage. We're also going to get another spell at this level. Take whatever you like. I'm personally going to go with Compelled Duel, because that feels right for someone who's like a rapier-using fencer type character. Next up, a Paladin level 4, we are going to be grabbing our first feat. Now, you don't need to take this right away, but I am going to show it off right at the start of the video, because this is going to be the feat that distinguishes Asuna from Kirito. We are going with Charger. Now, this is a weird feat. I mean, it gives you 2 extra attacks you can use with your weapon that you can't really get anywhere else. We have Charger Weapon Attack. It deals your weapons damage, and you deal an extra bit of damage, charging forward and slamming your weapon into the first enemy in your way. This costs an action and a bonus action, but doesn't provoke opportunity attacks and allows you to move an extra 9 meters without using your regular movement. It's a powerful skill, and we're going to be mitigating that high kind of action economy with a multi-class later, which you've probably already guessed what that is, but this is actually a super awesome kind of weapon skill for Asuna, as it does actually work as that like anime style forward thrust where they kind of like slide on their feet without actually moving. It works super well. It's also going to give us Charger Shove, allowing us to do basically the exact same thing, but it also works as a shove, being able to push enemies off of cliffs. This is why we wanted that extra little bit of strength, but this isn't the main thing we're going to be focusing on. We're mainly here for Charger Weapon Attack. And again, you don't have to take this now, but I want to take it as early as we can so we can kind of get the identity of the character pretty soon. Next up, we're going to have Extra Attack from level 5, which is awesome, and we're also going to be able to equip some extra spells, so I'm just going to redo my spell list here. So I think Aid is just a great spell to have overall, but it might not be as necessary here, because we're not going to have as high a spell slot as usual, so it might not be entirely necessary, and if we're mainly wanting to focus on the weapon skills, let's grab Branding Smite, Magic Weapon, Searing, Thunderous, Wrathful, Divine Favor, and I'm going to keep Compelled Duel as well, but all of these will work nicely. Magic Weapon especially would just be a nice thing to have concentration on over a long period of time, giving you a bit of a buff to your weapon's damage, but obviously the smites are also going to be pretty powerful, so pick and choose. Now, with Paladin level 5 out of the way, I do want to get into our multi-class as soon as we can, because it is going to be pretty important for the build. This means we're going to be jumping over to Rogue. This is going to grant us Sneak Attack at level 1, allowing us to do an extra d6 of slashing damage with our weapon, as long as we have advantage to hit. Now, with the way D&D and kind of Baldur's Gate 3 flanking mechanics work, if you have another ally threatening an enemy, you can get Sneak Attack, so this means it is the perfect team-up attack for Kirito and Asuna to do, and it just gets applied automatically if it's able to be triggered, so you don't even have to worry about it. It's just free extra damage. We're also going to get some skill proficiencies, and I want to bump up our athletics to a +5 with our expertise, and then you can take whatever you like. I quite like grabbing perception and throwing my expertise into persuasion. Next up at Rogue level 2, we're going to be getting our bonus action hiding, dashing, and disengaging, meaning that we can get that enemy speed with our bonus action dash, similar to Kirito with his boots. Next up at Rogue level 3, we are going to be getting our subclass, and of course we're grabbing the Thief for an extra bonus action, and also resistance to falling damage, but we're mainly here for the extra bonus action. This is going to help us mitigate that bonus action cost that Charger Weapon Attack brings us, and allows us to use more attacks in a single turn despite that limitation, meaning we're going to be zipping all over the battlefield, dealing tons of damage and using varied attacks. And finally, we'll take Rogue level 4 for the feat, meaning we can now bump up our dexterity to a total of 18. And with that, I don't think I want anything else from Rogue, so we are going to jump back over to Paladin. This is going to give us Aura of Protection, allowing us to add our Charisma modifier to saving throws made by allies and ourselves in a 3-meter radius. This is permanent, so just slap it on and forget. At Paladin level 7, we are also going to get another subclass feature, and for us, as an Oath of Vengeance, we are going to get Relentless Avenger. If you hit an enemy with an opportunity attack, your movement speed is increased by 4.5 meters until your next turn, meaning that you can be even faster, especially if the enemy tries to get away from you. You can also prepare some extra spells, and take whatever you like. I'm going to have to fix my spell list here very quickly. Let's grab Shield of Faith. I can see Heroism being good, and we'll keep Compelled Duel. And then finally at Paladin level 8, we're going to be getting our final feat of the build, and I'm going to take that ability score improvement to push our dexterity to the limit, that being 20, allowing us to get the maximum amount of damage out of our weapon attacks. And that is the build, and as such, I think we've created a really interesting style of combat here. Basically, we've kind of gone like for a dexterity-based paladin, which normally in D&D you wouldn't really be able to do as well, but in Baldur's Gate 3 we don't have multi-classing restrictions on stats, so it gets a little bit easier. And because we have a ton of weapon skills, quote-unquote, with our ability to cast various different smites, it does give you the feeling that you're able to use your weapon in many different ways, including the Charger weapon attack, which I will show off now. Let's avoid Kirito. We'll go for this training dummy. Shabam! See? It's like a rush attack with like the piercing thing. It's literally like an anime rapier attack. It's awesome. I love it. And this works for both if we go for the Charger shove as well. Sorry, Kirito. But yeah, you can see how that kind of works. It's pretty cool. So yeah, the Charger weapon attack is going to deal a bit of extra damage for us, and also uses our base weapon damage. And our smites, we only get level 2 smites, unfortunately, but because of how many times we're going to be able to attack in a turn, we're still going to be doing pretty decent damage. But speaking of that, let's get into the equipment. So I took a while to try and get the fashion right. I tried on a bunch of different armors that I thought would work well for this build, and this is the one I landed on, so let's get into it. We're looking at the Rippling Force Mail. This can be obtained quite easily as soon as you start Act 2, and while it's just a pretty standard heavy armor overall, it does have this unique design where if you apply the Sinful Red on Bone White dye, I believe it's called. Yep, let me just get that into my inventory so we remember to talk about it. You can really get that Asuna look. The other thing I found came pretty close was the Infernal Robe, if you wanted to go through the shenanigans of getting this on a good character, which I think does look quite good, but unfortunately we aren't actually running, you know, an armored defense here, so we're not gonna get the wait. Yeah, it's for clothing. Why do we have such high? Oh, we just get a ton from dexterity anyway. But I feel like it would be best to kind of wear the Rippling Force Mail to start, because I feel like it just looks better and it's going to give us some unique features. We're going to be getting Force Conduit, which is a unique status effect, and I mean, if you knew that this existed in the game, I applaud you, because I certainly didn't. But basically what Force Conduit does is, with this piece of armor, every time we take slashing, piercing, or bludgeoning damage, we're going to gain a turn of Force Conduit. Now what Force Conduit does is it reduces those same damage types damage by 1 per turn remaining, and if we take damage while we have 5 or more turns of it remaining, we deal a big force explosion around us. I'm going to have to do a build on this someday, and I've already got an idea for it. But the fact that we get this unique little thing that works for us is pretty nice. However, you can go for some other armor sets if you'd like. Obviously, like I said, the Infernal Robe looks quite nice. Again, since our dexterity is so high, you will get a decent amount of armor class from it. I would let you cast things like Fire Shield and such, but I do quite like the Rippling Force Mail more looks-wise. But something like the Armor of Agility could also look good, although it doesn't really have that Asuna look about it, but it's entirely up to you. Maybe something like the Armor of Persistence? Kind of. If we colour it with Sinful Red on Bone White, we can have a look and see how we feel about it. And not really. I think the Rippling Force Mail is the best looking armor here for this build, and I personally quite like it, but let's get into the rest of it. Fashion show over. For our headpiece, we are using the Grimskull Helm. This can be obtained in Act 1. It means that attacks can't land critical hits against you, awesome. It grants you resistance to fire damage, also awesome. But it also allows you to get another casting of Hunter's Mark once per long rest, so if you didn't go with Vengeance, you still have access to this spell. We also have the Gloves of the Duelist. While holding only 1 weapon in your main hand and nothing in your free hand, you gain a +2 bonus to melee weapon attack rolls. This is basically the dueling fighting style, but for attack rolls instead of damage, so you get a +2 overall, which is quite nice and fits well with this build. I've also gone with the Boots of Persistence. These can be obtained quite easily as soon as you start Act 3. It gives you freedom of movement and long strider, meaning you're going to be able to move everywhere really quickly. But as an Act 1 option up until that point, the Spring Step Boots are also going to work nicely, meaning that when the wearer dashes, which we can do up to twice per turn, or even 3 times per turn if you're crazy, you gain momentum, which is going to give you an extra bump to your speed per turn, remaining about 1.5 meters if I'm remembering that correctly, which I am, which will allow you to move super fast. But I prefer the Boots of Persistence overall for basically for freedom of movement, because I think it's quite good. As for our accessories, we're going to Spellcrux Amulet because we do have limited spell slots and we're going to want to be smiting a lot. This is going to let us effectively have 4 level 2 spell slots, which is good. I've also gone for the Bracing Band. Now, this is a unique one. I've never used this one before because it's never really come up, but I thought I would go over it. After shoving an enemy, which, a reminder, we can do with our Charge of Feet attack, the wearer gains a +1 to their armor class until their next turn. It's a bit shit, but I wanted to point it out anyway because I thought, hey, it actually works on this build in a weird way. Also, we have the Crusher's Ring. It says Emerald Ring. Again, early access name, ignore it. This is just going to give us a buff to our movement speed. Honestly, replace these with whatever you like. I just felt like showing them off. And now, the main attraction, the Duelist's Prerogative. You can get this for completing a questline in Act 3, and it is easily the best rapier in the game. It is a legendary with a +3 enchantment, and while this is in your main hand, while your offhand is empty, you score a critical hit when rolling a 19. Awesome. Moreover, you gain an additional reaction per turn, which is crazy good, especially with this weapon's built-in feature, Withering Cut. On a hit with a melee weapon, you can use a reaction to deal an additional necrotic damage equal to your proficiency bonus. And also, because you get this additional reaction, if Kirito uses Commander's Strike on you, you also get to use that extra reaction for that, meaning you can gain even more attacks and still have the reaction free, which is awesome. So this build working together with Kirito is super strong. But we also get some extra features which makes this build even better. Challenge to a duel. Challenge an enemy to attack only you, inflicting bleeding on the target. So you basically get a better version of Compelled Duel, which you can cast as a bonus action, and is going to allow you to deal extra damage with bleeding. You also get Duelist Enthusiasm, which is a free extra bonus action attack that we can make. Now, you may be thinking, oh great, that means we can attack up to 4 times per turn. Yes and no. The Duelist Enthusiasm can only be used once per turn, even with our 2 bonus actions. However, we still wanted those extra bonus actions so we could go for our Charger weapon attacks, and still be able to do this in the same turn. And since our Charger weapon attack also activates extra attack as well, we can go for our Charger attack to kind of enter into close range combat, go for our regular extra attack, and then go for the Duelist Enthusiasm, each doing extra damage with our reactions as well. And if we have Kirito's Commanding Strike going for us, we are also going to be able to do extra damage with that attack. So this is a build that, while it is going to stand really well on its own, it gets elevated when combined with my other build. So you definitely want to run these two together to get the full effect. But of course, this is an Act 3 weapon, and if you want something solid that you can use up until that point, the Sword of Screams is going to be a decent option that you can get in Act 1. Essentially, it's a pretty decent +1 rapier, which also has a little bit of extra psychic damage tacked on, so it is going to do pretty well damage-wise. But of course, in Act 2, towards the end, you could get the Infernal Rapier, but at that point, you're so close to getting the Duelist Prerogative anyway, really, it's not going to matter as much, especially since our spellcasting modifier it's not that high, so I can see you just using the Sword of Screams, or maybe just a basic Rapier +2 after that, until you get the Duelist Prerogative, which is where this build shines. So yeah, that is the build. Not as much to say really at the end of this one. This was just a popular request that came up in the Kirito video, because obviously if you make one character of what is considered a duo, you have to make the other. And I'll be honest, before I uploaded that Kirito video, I thought nobody's gonna give a shit about this one, because, you know, it's like it's like an anime character, and it's a show that's, like, you know, got a very contentious opinion about it all across the internet. But no, a lot of people really like that build, and as such asked me to build Asuna as well. So of course, here I am to oblige you. I feel like these builds do work really well together, and I know in my original Kirito video I didn't actually get Commander's Strike, but in the post I kind of said, hey, you should get Duke Ravengard's Longsword, which is going to give you Commander's Strike anyway, allowing you to use that regardless, or you could just pick it up with Kirito, because I think it is going to make both builds work really, really well. My next build is probably going to be another build request, and it's going to be one of my most popular build requests, something that I've been asked to do more than anything else, and that is an acid build. I have found something really, really fun that I'm really, really happy with, and I can't wait to show you guys, so look forward to an acid build tomorrow. And then on Friday, I will upload a kind of a special video, something I've been working on. It's nothing too crazy, but it's definitely a different style. It's still a build video, but the build is not the focus of it, and I will explain obviously at the time, but I will leave it up to you guys to kind of guess what that is. And then finally on Saturday, if all goes well, I should be able to upload my Moradin deity build. So with that, I am going to leave it here. Thank you all so much for watching, and I will see you all next time.